Okay, well, it is a beautiful day for a video. It's overcast here in Southern California, where I'm located, and I've done a lot of comparisons of Land Cruisers, but mostly the more modern ones, like a 200 versus a 100, or a 570 Lexus versus a 200, or 100 series Land Cruiser versus a LX470. But today, based on popular demand, I had some people saying, like, compare a 40 and a 60. But I don't have a 60, I got a 62. We'll just go over the year of that 62 and compare it here to a 40. Because a lot of people, you know, post-pandemic are looking into overlanding, enjoying the beautiful scenery and fire roads we have here in the US and respective countries, you know, wherever you're watching this from. So people got into overlanding. Land Cruisers alone went up about 20%, 30% in Australia, where they're super popular. Just crazy. The market, people are realizing, you know, what these cars are all about. So we are comparing a more family oriented, you can get a lot more gear into this 62, plenty of space, no third row. So it's got 2 rows. So let's say family of 4 or 5, but plenty of storage, especially with that comfort roof rack up top. And then you have the FJ40, more like guy and your girlfriend, or a guy and his dog. But when you go with a family, it gets a little cramped in this one. And you know, a lot of parents, I guess these days, wouldn't feel too safe with the rear facing seats. So this is more for the bachelor or later on, you know, third vehicle. Love it. FJ40. This one's a 1974. So let's just go over it quickly so we can get our baseline in this comparison. This FJ40 is a 1974. So it was the last year they had that original engine, the 155, the 1F engine as it's known. In 1975, they came out with the 2F engine, which went into the first production series of the FJ60 and went all the way until 88 when they went into we switched to fuel injection. So that's one comparison right off the bat. If you get an FJ62, you're going to have fuel injection. So no carburetor, you're not going to smell fuel. Because let's face it, whenever you have a carburetor, no matter what car, American, Japanese, you are going to smell gas. I like it, kind of the outdoors, a bit of a gassy smell, you know, cool, but people like that fuel injection. If you're crawling too, if you're doing a lot of off-road, if you're going uphill, fuel injection obviously is better, has its benefits. Back to the 74. So this 74, and both of these are lifted, so they're not stock. There's about a 4-inch lift, because that's a springs over axle, versus the FJ62, which has a man-free old man emu. I always get in trouble from the guys from Australia on how I'm pronouncing that. OMU, how about I say that? Or OME, I should say. But here's how suspension is supposed to be on a Land Cruiser when they come stock. There's your solid axle and the attachments underneath. The springs run underneath. Now, on a solid front axle FJ40, same thing, both solid front and rear. Well, notice how the springs are going above. That's SOA, that's springs over axle, versus SUA, which is springs under axle. So that's what gives it a lot of the height. And those tires, I mean, these come with what, 31s is the originals on this. This one, you got to put big tires. When you lift that high, guess what? You get a huge gap, huge space. I mean, look at that lift alone. You can fit a couple, I don't know, corgis under there easily. Dogs with short legs can fit under this truck, no problem. So these are 35s. And 35-inch tires is going to give you some height, right? If you go from 31 to 35, that's 4 inches, but you will realize half of that, because, you know, happens at the top of the wheel and the bottom of the wheel. So on the axle, you'll get 2 inches more height when you go from a 31 to a 35. So this FJ40 clears a ton. Now back to that engine. Carbureted, so you're going to smell some gas. and it's 125 horsepower. So it's plenty of torque. You know, you're crawling over rocks and terrain and overlanding. It's plenty. That's not the problem. But on the highway, you know, getting to 60 miles an hour is an effort in this vehicle, especially, you know, now that there's big tires on it. And just to look at that rear suspension, again, springs over axle. Gives you a ton of height. The previous owner did put these metal plates on it. Zero rust on this truck. It is rust free. It is just an awesome specimen. California its whole life. But he did that in order, well, part of it is the look, but also to secure the tire mount. So I like the look, but sometimes people are wondering, well, what's underneath? What are you hiding? Nothing. Metal. It's all original. It's all in perfect shape, as you can see with the frame. So that engine, yeah, if you're leisurely, you know, on a Sunday drive, no problem. Daily driver, I personally wouldn't get an FJ40 as a daily driver unless I lived in Costa Rica and I had like all this crazy terrain to overcome, or Montana, or who knows, right? So that 125 horsepower, when you go to a 2FE, which they did in 75 and up on the FJ40s, and the first set of the FJ60s in 1980, they were 135 horsepower. So you got a 10 horsepower boost and you were still with a carbureted engine. But this one, in 1989, so 88, 89, and 90, and then the first round of the FJ80s came with a 3FE engine. Great engine, 155 horsepower, so very noticeable because it's fuel injection too. You know, and you keep a lot of that power going to the wheels. So 155, which means this one, with those wheels, cruises on the highway comfortably at 75 miles an hour. You could even go 80 if you want, but 75 miles an hour and this thing cruises. You cannot get 75 miles an hour in this one. I think if you're even rolling downhill, you're not getting 75 miles an hour. So obviously a lot of us growing up, FJ40, it's so iconic, just that look, the hood, the grill, the bib, everything. It's beautiful, right? But this one, almost as beautiful, right? It's FJ40 paved the way for the 60, then the 80, then the 100, and so on. But this one, for family, this is great. Both have the locking hubs. Same on this. And just to show you, that is just one huge deep dish. That's my hand, how deep that is. And both of those are 35s on 15-inch wheels. But for daily driver, you could do this as a daily driver. This one, obviously, you can store so much more. You know, if we look inside, great bench seat. So here's where you put the kids, or if you're going without the kids, guess what? This folds up nice and easy. And then the rear, without a third row, which in the FJ80 or the 100 folds up, you can remove, but here you always have plenty of space. And in the front, super nice. You know, for cup holders, neither of these cars are great for cup holders. You get that little small one to the left there of the center console. But I think there might be some aftermarket workarounds. But nice and clean, plenty of power. I've never felt, you know, again, I'm not racing Ford Raptors in this truck. You know, you're cruising along, getting lots of thumbs up, people admiring. These are beautiful trucks. Look at all that windows. Look at all the windows. No blind spots in this rig. And then that's a Confer roof rack. So, you know, instead of going, you know, a front runner or some of these newer racks, I like this because it goes with the times, right? And it's clean, it's nice, and it's big. a little bit of retrofitting to put on the hijack lift. That's some Smittybilt, which had to be cut to fit. Smittybilt puts out a nice holder, but that's where that attaches. That's easy to go on a Jeep, but when you're talking about an older and bigger roof rack from a Land Cruiser, these Convers. Conver didn't just go on Land Cruisers; it went on a whole bunch of different trucks. They're bigger, from here to here, a lot bigger. The Jeeps are smaller, and that Smittybilt is built for smaller versus this. So you just got to do some retrofitting. And same thing. I think this is a Smittybilt. It was a little bit easier to put on. Solid. It's not moving at all. But for the family, this is the way to go. And for the single guy or couple, that's the way to go. You know, if we were to ask our dog friends, our pets, man's best friend, guess what? He's just happy to go along for the ride. The dog will go in either one, that's for darn sure. So let's take a peek inside the FJ40. Obviously, going to be a little tighter. So that is aftermarket. Even though it's an original engine and all, this was put in aftermarket. A better carburetor, so a little bit of horsepower boost, I'm sure, in here. So as you can see, parents aren't too keen to put their kid there, facing that way. Not as safe as that Land Cruiser over there. And these are Volvo seats that were put in here, so a little bit more comfortable than the original bench. But as you can see, you know, seating, I took one of them out on that side. Seating for two in the front, and in the back, yeah, I would put, you know, an adult, my buddy, in there who can hang on to the bars. I wouldn't put a kid. I don't think it's that safe. So obviously you're going to be a lot safer in the FJ62 with the family. But man, going on a honeydew run in an FJ40, lots of fun. And those wheels, those swampers on this, not only are they 35s and big, they're 14.5, so those are extra wide. And I wouldn't do, you know, this spacing coming out, I wouldn't do that on any other truck, but on a FJ40 Land Cruiser, it just looks right. Because you kind of get the, like if you look at the front, I call it the steps. You go down, out, and then down. I think that looks great. On the Land Cruiser, the rear wheels are always inset a bit. So believe it or not, this one on the back, it has a spacer, a 1.5-inch spacer. So you can see how that becomes a lot more flush and clean. Because whenever you go up with a lift, you want to go out for better stability. But the fronts already stick out. So did not need to do any spacers on the front. Those just stay as is. And yes, 35s on the FJ60 or the 60 series, whether it's a 60 or 62, because it's the same suspension. You know, well, original same suspension, and you put the same aftermarket Old Man Emu on there with Manfrey anti-inversion shackles, reverse shackles. You are going to get rub. 35s, you get rub when you turn. The tire actually can clip the leaf springs. So, and as you can see, that rear tire is, there you go, right there. It's a little bit more flush. Otherwise, if you don't put that spacer, they're inset and they don't really match the front as well. But obviously these ones are just massive swampers. So if I was to be asked which one do I prefer, I like them both for totally different reasons, right? The FJ40, just iconic, great, and fun. And the FJ60 or 62, it's, you know, Land Cruiser meets SUV. So yes, there was the 55 before this, and this, believe it or not, that 70, we never got it here in the US market. So anybody who's watching this from South America or Australia or other parts of the world, you guys are lucky. You got the 70 series, and I think I'll import one at one point, because here in the US we can start importing when they're 25 years old. So just quickly, if you subscribe to my channel, I do a lot of reviews on Land Cruisers. So that white one is a 100 series. I compare that to a Lexus, to a 200 series, and I even compare the 100 and the 62. Kind of like what I'm doing here, but bumping up to 1 year newer. And then I post videos on this. This is an FJ40, obviously very modified. It has a Vortec 300 horsepower engine in it, and this thing is just so much fun. So this, I actually compared this one, a V8, to that inline six, 155 Land Cruiser engine, and it is a different experience. Absolutely, this one's got plenty of power. So definitely tune into the station and check out that video and other comparisons, because who knows, you might be in the market for either a 100 series, which is V8, and compare it to a 60 or 62, which is the inline six. And in that respect, you'd be comparing 155 horsepower, which again, when I drive this truck, I know I'm not racing anybody. I know I'm just out there to enjoy the drive. That white 100 over there, it's a 2006. The last 2 years of that production, and that one has 275 horsepower. The ones before that, so from 98 to 2005, they're 230, and then they did a 5 horsepower bump, I think in 2002 or 3 to 235. All right, what else? I just kind of wing it when I do these videos. They made a ton of these, lots of FJ40s, lots of the 60. I think in the 80 series they made about 100,000, and in the 100 series about 100,000. But sadly, at the time of filming this video, there's talk that the 300 will not make it to the US market. It'll come here as a Lexus model 570 or whatever they'll call it. But if I was a betting man, I'm sure they will be back within a few years, realizing that error, that the flagship, what put Toyota on the market, on the map, I should say, and a huge company, was the FJ40. That's what got them to the US, and that's what started it all. So Corollas, Camrys, all Toyota models, well, their great grandfather is the FJ40. Most robust, amazing vehicles. All right, well, there you have it. Again, subscribe, like if you enjoyed. I go into more detail in some of my other comparisons. I do some videos of just the vehicle alone. So yeah, check it out. If you like Land Cruisers, outdoor stuff, off-roading, that's my passion. That's what I post. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and well, look forward to some more. Thanks.